How is it going, everyone? Welcome, welcome. Quick question. Does anybody else dance when the countdown music plays? Because I sit here and I dance while I'm waiting every single time. I don't know why I do that, but I hope you guys are dancing too. I see a ton of people in the comments today. I see a lot of our regular faces. Hi, Amanda. I see a lot of people from all over the world. I've seen Bulgaria, Spain, Italy, all over. A bunch of our American friends. Thank you for joining us. Some people from the UK. Some of our coworkers are in the chat, so we're definitely very excited to have you guys here today. I'm sure by now you've heard why we're here today, right? We have a new member of the family. We are so excited today that you got to experience the launch of our new OMSYSTEM 90mm f3.5 macro IS Pro lens. That is a mouthful. I'm going to continue to call it the 90mm for the rest of the episode. Hope you guys don't mind. Now, before we get going, let's hit a couple housekeeping pieces. We talk about this every time, but yes, this is being recorded. Yes, you can check it out on YouTube later. So if you can't watch it all the way through, don't worry. You can come back and watch it again after this live stream ends. If you are interested in pre-ordering the 90mm lens, there are links in the description to your local area web shop. So if you're in Europe, there's a link for Europe. If you're one of our Australian friends, there's a link in Australia. And of course, our US, North American people, our Canadians, we like you too. Anybody can order, the link's in the description. All right, we should probably start talking what we're gonna talk about, right? So I'm really lucky. I get to be friends with our guest today. I have been friends with him for a few years, and I am so excited that he got to be kind of the face of this 90mm macro launch. And I'm sure you guys are quite familiar with my friend, OMSYSTEM Ambassador Chris McGinnis. So I'm just gonna bring him on because we need to talk to him. How's it going, Chris?
Hey, Mishalla, how are you?
I'm good. I'm super excited to hear about your experience with the 90mm.
Yeah, I'm really excited to share with everyone today.
So Chris is tired because Chris stayed up all night last night for the launch, posting stories and sharing some of his photos. Where did you get your photos from?
They are from Costa Rica.
Nice. Is that what we're going to talk about tonight? Are we going to talk about your time there?
So we're going to talk about my time in Costa Rica. I wanted to give everyone on the stream today a little bit of an insight behind the scenes. I feel like people would be really interested in that. We don't do that often. So people always say, like, how did you get to do this? What was it like? And I want to take people behind the curtain a little bit. And then, of course, talk about my impressions of the new 90 macro, how it was on the trip, the challenges that I faced, which, were not related to the lens. They were related to rain and jungle and things like that. And then answer questions, because I'm sure people have them.
Awesome. So to give everybody some context of what we're talking about, if you didn't see it this morning, our launch video was this beautiful, stunning piece of art that Chris McGinnis was the main top model in, and it was in Costa Rica. And for this project, we kind of sent him a lens and sent him to Costa Rica, sight unseen. So it was a pretty cool experience, I would assume. So he's going to share, like he said, his experience on that trip. If you haven't seen that video, while he starts queuing up his images, I'll post a link in the comments so that you guys can check it out. Because how's it feel being an international supermodel now?
It's really weird. I mean, it's really cool, obviously, but last night, so I'm on the East Coast in the US, and it was 1 a.m. when the product was announced, and most people were asleep here in the US, even on the West Coast. It was getting later, but I was getting messages from people all around the world, people that I'm friends with on social, and OM employees and family members that had stayed up, so it's pretty wild and really exciting.
Nice. Well, I'm going to let you get started because I know that we've got a lot to talk about today and a lot of cool photos to share. Let me go ahead and pop that bad boy up for you so you can start going.
Cool. All right. So, as Mishalla said, I had the unique opportunity to be the first photographer to test the new 90mm f3.5 macro IS Pro in the field. So several months ago, I was contacted by the team at OM. They said, hey, we've got this new lens coming out. You probably saw it on the roadmap. And at that point, I thought maybe they were going to say, we wanted to get one in your hands and do some sample photos or something. I did not expect that they said, we want to send you off somewhere into the field, shoot a video of you, have you collect output. So we started planning. And the project was going to be 4 days, which is a very short amount of time to do what you see here on this slide. But it was 4 days to test the new 90 and test it in real world conditions. At that point, I'm sure the engineers and the R&D staff and the team who designed and developed the lens had tested it, but more in controlled conditions. This was take the lens out in the wild, see what it was like, see what it could do. Then produce marketing photos and promotional video content. So Mishalla mentioned the video, which if you haven't seen it yet, definitely check that out.
It's in the chat.
Thank you. And then photos that were taken with the lens. And that's a unique challenge. I'll get into that in a second. And then last but not least, provide, oh, I'm sorry. I said that already. The photos in bullet point number 2 were actually marketing photos. So that's the photos that you see on the website. That's the photos like you see here. Photos of me using the lens. So video of me using the lens, photos of me using the lens, and then the sample photos. And the unique challenge that I mentioned with sample photos is I was headed off to a country in a region where I had never been before, with questionable weather at that time of year, with a new product, a limited amount of time, a lot to do, right? We need to make a video. I need to be in these photos. And the expectation is that I turn around and give OM something that looks great and can promote this lens. So failure wasn't really an option, but it was certainly a concern.
Just a small concern?
Just a small concern. Like literally,
no stress there.
What if I don't get any good photos? That was my concern.
Right.
So here I am in Costa Rica. All of these photos are thanks to Ted Culgrove, who is on the OM team. He was along with me. We used a creative agency to shoot the video, and they actually shot it all with OM1 and a lot with the 90 macro, which was really cool. But having Ted there to shoot these behind the scenes images was really awesome, because you get this look into the project, right? You see me there in the field on the top left. You see the team videoing me, taking photos. You see kind of the scene there with the beautiful views from where we were in Costa Rica. Driving, you know, we've got a cameraman on the hood of the vehicle so we can get rolling shots, all different things. And some of these photos or these views might be familiar to you if you've seen some of the marketing in the last 13 hours. All right, so now I'm going to get into a series of behind the scenes and then the output. So as I mentioned, we only had 4 days, and 2 of those days were going to be completely eaten up with making that video. And obviously I was going to be photographing subjects on camera for the video, but that didn't mean I got to shoot the way I wanted to, right? When I'm out shooting on my own, I can spend as much time with the subject as I want. I can go 2 hours without finding anything and it doesn't matter. This was a totally different schedule with a shot list and an expectation and a vision in mind that we were trying to hit. So some of the shots that I'll be sharing and showing were certainly made during that video production, but some were made at night, off hours, whenever I could get out, whenever I found something. And thankfully we had Ted there to photograph behind the scenes. So you're going to see a photo of me taking a photo, and then you'll see the output. So in this case, if I can do this, here we go.
I just love that you did all of this in the pitch black at night. Like these photos are all beautiful because of that. The dynamic is really neat, but
yeah,
it's just like it's so dark and so soggy.
Yeah, so Ted had never been to Costa Rica at all. I've been to Costa Rica one other time, but in a totally different area. This is very different than my last visit. And I don't know if we were brave or stupid or whatever, but we were at our hotel, which was pretty remote, and we would just go outside and go walk in the jungle by ourselves because we needed to. And it worked out pretty well, but maybe it seems crazy looking back at it. But this was actually very close to our hotel. We were taking a walk at night and found this humongous tiger bromeliad spider right here. So I don't know if you can see can you see a laser pointer, Mishalla?
Yeah, I can see your laser pointer. I'm saying no to the spider because I don't like it.
Like right underneath the pointer right now, there's a spider. Here I am. And this theme here of the camera being soaking wet, the lens being soaking wet, that was 2.5 of the 4 days. So that was a unique challenge, but it was also great because we got to put the weatherproofing, right? This is IP53 weather sealed. This is top of the line rated weatherproofing, and we got to kind of prove that it was what OM's saying that it is. And it was great. We never had any problem with any of our gear. There were 4 OM ones, 2 90 macros, and everything performed flawlessly the entire time. And honestly, I don't see how anyone could put the cameras and lenses through more severe conditions than that for normal usage. So
absolutely. Really when Ted brought his behind the scenes shots to us when he first came back, I was like, wow, you just like so proved our weather sealing to the next level, because he was texting us from Costa Rica just drenched. Like you guys look like you had been in a shower.
Yes.
And he was like, no, we're just literally filming this video.
Yep. Yeah. We didn't have a choice to like wait a day, right?
Right.
So, but all right. So no one wants to see this photo for too long, but there's the spider, there's me. And then that's the result. So this is a 5-shot stack. So with all of these images on screen, you'll see my shooting information below. And in the bottom right corner, I'll indicate whether it was a focus stack or if it was a single shot. And you'll see both. This, if I go back here real quick, you can see that I have nothing to stabilize against. I'm reached out. It's dark. It's raining. There's no tree, there's no tripod, there's nothing that I can lean on. I'm just kind of reaching my arms out and stabilizing the best I can. So I was really excited to get 5 frames that let me produce this sort of focus stack. And I think that that theme will carry out through a lot of these images and a lot of the photos that I made in Costa Rica. I was really impressed with the 90s, or I guess my ability to stabilize my shots. And I have to assume that that is because of the stabilization in the lens working with the stabilization in the body. Also, as people probably realize, the 90 is a bit bigger than the 60, for instance. And at first I was like, oh, this lens is a lot bigger than I expected. It's much lighter than I expected. It's only 453 grams. A lot of the competitors are up over 700 grams. So it's really not a heavy lens at all. And because it's a little bit thicker, I found that it was easier to kind of cradle in my left hand for shots like this. So I think it actually worked as an advantage.
It looks so much friendlier in your photo than it does on the leaf.
Ted was real scared, by the way. So yeah. Ted was taking these behind the scene photos. This is a perfect segue. So this is a hawk-nosed pit viper, very venomous snake, potentially deadly snake if it got you just right. And this was a really cool opportunity for me, as I'd never photographed one before. But there I am in the grass photographing what's really a pretty small snake. But we get nice and intimate. And this was a 15-shot stack. This focus stack was done in camera using the in-camera focus stacking feature. Handheld, I'm obviously kind of braced against the ground, so that helps. But it was really great to just press the button one time, have it fire off 15 frames, and then stack them right in camera to get this type of result.
Ted in the comments says he can confirm he was terrified, by the way.
He was. I didn't mean to call him out like that, but he was terrified. Yeah. So less terrified here. This was a really fun part of the trip. We found a lot of frogs at night, and where I live in Pennsylvania, yeah, we have some frogs, but not like they have in Costa Rica. I mean, there's countless species of frogs. They're all different shapes and sizes and colors. And we got to find a lot of different frogs, especially while out at night. So here you can just barely make out the LCD screen. You see the glow from the modeling light on the flash here. And then you get a much more intimate look at that little frog when you view it through the new 90 macro.
I
And
agree
here
with
again, this is a, oh, sorry,
the
Mishalla.
comments. Oh,
What's
no,
that?
no, no. Somebody in the comments said they like the frogs better, and I agree with that.
There will be more, yeah.
The frogs are happier than the spider.
Yeah. So something for everybody, right? But,
yeah, very diverse trip.
Yeah. This is a 10-shot focus stack as well. So I do a fair bit of focus stacking normally, but on this trip, I really wanted to put it to the test because I wanted to see how the 90 performed. I wanted to see what kind of results I got. I want to test the stabilization. So you'll probably see maybe even more focus stacks than I normally shoot, but it really worked great. I've already gotten some questions about does focus stacking work? Just very simple. And of course it does. Autofocus is actually much faster and more reliable than I would say on the 60 or the 30 macro. And that makes sense. This is a pro lens. You're getting the best of the best features and the most premium equipment and the best build quality. So I'm not surprised, but it is definitely more accurate autofocus, faster autofocus. And for anyone that's maybe unfamiliar with the 60 or competitors' macro lenses that have focus limiters, the 90 has a focus limiter on the left side, and that lets you kind of hone in on the specific range in which you want your autofocus to seek focus. And that's a huge help in finding focus faster because your lens doesn't have to think, oh, you want focus in the distance or do you want it really close? You're kind of narrowing the range, and that makes it much faster and keeps you from missing shots.
Chris?
Yeah.
We got to address an elephant in the room because it is blowing up all over the chat. And thank you to everyone in the chat who's helping answer the questions. You know who you are, and you guys are the greatest. Everybody wants to know about your diffuser. You got to tell them what the diffuser is really quick.
Sure. You can see it there. You'll probably see it again in another shot later. But so I use the Cygnus Tech macro diffuser. So Brendan James, he's actually an OM shooter as well, amazing macro photographer from Australia, and he makes and sells these diffusers, so you can reach out to him if you're interested. And this is actually a bit undersized, quite honestly. So maybe I'm answering a follow-up question for some people. If you already have a diffuser from Brendan, the Cygnus Tech diffuser, and it was made for use with the 30 or the 60, which are quite a bit smaller, this is going to be undersized. I kind of made it work on this trip. It did the job, but as soon as I was able to talk to him about it, I asked him like, hey, I need a new bigger diffuser, and that's what I'll be going with for the future. So now, if you happen to be listening to this coming from another system or thinking about jumping from full frame, larger format lens and camera, your diffuser is going to work fine. Like you can always go smaller, but it's hard to go bigger because it just won't fit. So that's the case. Anything else about the diffuser?
Nope, you answered the two questions. Somebody asked why we didn't put a cup holder with all these pro features, and I'm really sorry. We will definitely send that information to R&D and see about getting you a cup holder, Mr. Pendleton.
Coincidentally, the lens does fit perfectly in the cup holder of my car. So it is just the right size.
All right, I'll let you continue on. Sorry for interrupting.
No problem. So Ted and I were walking the property back to our rooms one day, and I spotted something on the wall of one of the casitas at the hotel where we were staying. And I said, oh, what is that? I thought it was a spider from a distance, and it turned out to be a weevil. And so I walked up and I took some photos of it, and Ted's like, hold on a second. I got to get a photo. Like, people aren't going to believe how small that was. And I think why he was thinking that is because that is the output. And again, this is a 10-shot in-camera stack. This is slightly processed to maybe push the contrast a bit, but that's the JPEG that comes out of the camera. So I did not bother going into the RAWs and processing all of them individually and going through a bunch of manual effort to create a stack. This was utilizing the in-camera technology. And there's just also, it's important to point out with all the photos that I'm showing today, there's no crop on any of these. So the only crop is if, when you do in-camera stacking, there's a bit of a crop to give your final image. It's like maybe 15% gets cropped off the edges. But other than that, I did not crop these images. So I wanted you to have a true sense of what magnification is possible and what you get right out of the 90. All right, there I am again in the pouring rain, in the pitch black. You can see some flashlights in the background. You can see one of the crew that was shooting the video here. This umbrella is for me, right? That umbrella is not for the camera. It's not for the lens. That umbrella is because I was just 10 hours into being in the pouring rain and had about enough of it. And I'm sure when Ted took this photo, he was under an umbrella or in a poncho, as we were for most of the time. But I think that this photo is really telling because this is the result. So I don't think that you would ever think that was shot at night. I don't know that you could even tell that it was raining, other than my favorite part of the photo is this one droplet that's kind of dropping down to the ground that was frozen in midair. Oh, I'll go back there. I'll just point out. So this is actually not stacked in camera. So you'll see here, this is a 43 shot stack. And for anyone that's not familiar with focus stacking or the, I guess the limitation of stacking in camera, 15 shots in camera, up to, I believe, 999 shots out of camera. So you can bracket focus well beyond 15 shots, but the camera won't process them and stack them in the camera. You have to do that back at your computer. So I stacked this after the fact, where some of the others were stacked right in camera, but same type of result regardless.
Quickly,
yeah.
I've got a couple of people asking if you stack using flash. I know the answer to this.
Yes. Yeah, of course. You might be able to tell here. I mean, you can see my flash. It's lit up here. But yeah, I have no problem hand holding and shooting series of images. So I'm kind of rested against the ground there, I think, on my fist to get a little bit more stabilization. But 43 shots only takes a couple of seconds. As long as the subject stays still and I stay reasonably still, it's no problem at all. And I usually manually slow my flash or my shots per second down so my flash can recycle. But really the camera and flash communicate to make sure that happens anyway. But I'm shooting at about 5 frames a second.
Nice.
So here, since people asked about diffuser, I didn't have the diffuser on my camera when we found this little frog, and I know you probably can barely see it, but there is a very, very tiny frog there, about the size of my thumbnail. And I had a piece of foam, a foam diffuser in my bag. I just popped it on real quickly and took some shots out on the back porch. And it looks like that. And again, this is using in-camera stacking. When I looked at the back of my camera after I pressed the button, this is exactly what I saw.
That's so insane. That frog was so tiny on the stick. When Chris first showed me this picture, I didn't even realize there was a frog there. I thought he was taking a picture of a stick, and I was like, all right, Chris. I mean,
nice stick. Yeah.
It's a nice stick.
So I do have some more photos, but I wanted to make sure that I got to the takeaways. So if everyone's seen enough, you can hear my takeaways and you can jump. Hopefully you'll stick around to see more photos after this. But what do I think? What are my first impressions of the lens, right? I'm sure everyone wants to know that. I know very few people have had the opportunity to get it in their hands so far. And of course, I'll answer questions as they come through. But this lens really feels like it was made for field macro photographers. There are a lot of features and considerations that speak directly to the type of photography that I like to do, people that like to be out with their camera. Not to say that it's not great for in-studio macro as well, because the magnification is unparalleled, but the fact that it is so lightweight, the fact that the weather sealing is so high quality, the stabilization so you can hand hold it. All of these things really play into the set of features that make it kind of this unicorn lens for macro photographers. So really, really excited about the work that went into it and the way that it turned out. Next, 2x magnification, which if we're talking in 35 millimeter full frame terms, looks more like 4 times magnification, is a lot. And it's a lot more than 1-to-1 or 1x magnification, which you would get out of the 60 macro or most competitors. And I know that may sound really obvious or silly, like, yeah, Chris, we know that 2 is twice 1, but I don't think I was appreciating it until I saw it. And then when you attach a teleconverter, it gets really crazy. So the field of view, or what you can fit on the screen or in the EVF, is about 4.5 millimeters. So the way I've been describing it to people is if you look at your keyboard, the width of a letter on your keyboard is like 3 or 4 millimeters. So you could fit only that letter on your keyboard in the frame with the teleconverter attached. So incredibly high magnification possibilities with this lens. And that really goes right into the next point of how versatile this lens is. I was not expecting the versatility. It made shooting really, really fun. With the 60, which a lot of you may have or you may be familiar with, I've used it for years. I love the 60. I'm almost always shooting at or near its max magnification. And with the 90, of course I shot at or near its maximum magnification as well, but not all the time. I could be at 0.5x or 1.5x or 1x or 2x, all within a few seconds, in and out and around. And it opened up so many more opportunities. It gave me so many more chances to get different types of shots. And of course, it has a little bit more working distance than the 60 does. And I want to talk about that a little bit because you may have seen diagrams or read specs. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I'll say from the front of the glass to the subject, to get 1x on the 60 is slightly closer. By slightly, I mean about a centimeter, slightly closer than you would need to be with the 90. To get 2x out of the 90, you need to be just inside by like half a centimeter of where you would be for 1x on the 60. If that makes sense to you, awesome. If it doesn't, just know that because the lens is longer and the working distance is longer, you physically and your camera are quite a bit further away from your subject. So it's a little misleading because you look at the numbers and you're like, oh, it's almost the same as with the 60, but you have to factor in the fact that the lens is longer and you're further away. So you're scaring your subjects less. You're not like encroaching on their space as much. So I feel like that's a real advantage when in the field with live subjects. Onto ergonomics. Awesome. I mentioned it a little bit already. I'm sure some people saw the specs or saw the lens and they're like, oh, that's bigger than I thought. I thought that, Micro Four Thirds is all about portability and size. It still is, right? Like this is not a big lens. It is very, very lightweight and very manageable. I walked with it for 7-8 hours a day for 4 days and had it in my hand the whole time and no problem at all. So if anything, it provides kind of a nicer balance when affixed to a camera like the OM1. It's really, it feels like it matches that body really well. And I know a lot of people probably have EM1 Mark IIs or 3s. It would be great on the EM1X or even down to like an OM5. But it kind of just fits in your hand a little bit better, where the 60, by comparison, you're almost pinching it with your fingers, where the 90 you can kind of cradle in your palm. And that makes actual workability quite a bit better. Weather sealing, you saw it, right? I was in the rain a lot, and thankfully it was warm, because if it was cold rain, we would have had a really miserable time. But it was drenched the whole time. The photo that's up on screen right now is like 1-2 hour block where we didn't have pouring rain, and we said, oh, we got to get some photos where it's dry. But a lot of rain and no problems at all. And last but not least, I had 4 days to test this lens in the wild. I live in the Northeast in the United States. It's cold. I don't do a lot of winter macro. So I've had the lens here in my home office, but the bulk of my testing was done on that trip to Costa Rica. And it was really exciting, but it was a bit of a tease because I have months until it gets warm here in Pennsylvania before I can go out and get the kind of shots that I'm looking forward to. But I know it's going to be really, really great, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I think that's probably a good time to take a minute and answer a few questions if you've got them.
That was going to be my segue into the next session. So I'm just going to pop this down for 1 sec, but we'll bring it right back up. Let's talk to some people because there's a few questions I've got going on in here. We talked about the diffuser, so I'm going to pass that one up. Is this easier to focus than the 60 millimeter macro? And then there's a follow-up question that I'm going to add to this.
Well,
does the lens have a dial like the 60 millimeter?
Perfect. I was going to answer that question even if it wasn't asked right now. So I'm glad this question came in because I kind of forgot to mention it already, and it's very important. So let's answer the questions on the screen first. Easier to focus than the 60. I think objectively, yes, right? Like the simple answer is yes, it is easier. It's faster. It's more accurate than the 60. That said, you do have to kind of understand how to work with it. If your focus limiter is on the wrong setting, you're going to have a hell of a time because it's not going to find focus. But if you put the focus limiter or your subject in the range of the focus limiter and use autofocus, it will be accurate. It is faster than the 60. So I think that that's great, but maybe more importantly, or second part of that answer speaks to the second question, and that's the dial. So anybody that's used the 60, it has a small dial on the left side, and that dial is a focus limiter and a 1-to-1 shortcut. Well, so that's the 90, but on the 60, yeah. I was like, there's no dial on the screen right now.
I was waiting, and I went too soon.
Yes, but on the 60, there's a dial on the left, and it's a focus limiter, so you can set it to 3 different ranges of focus, or you can kind of pull it to the front, and there's a spring-loaded shortcut. And that brings you right to 1-to-1, which is the max magnification on the 60. And it's a great feature. People generally love it. Some people are a little confused about how it works, but once you understand how it works, it's great. So I opened up the box for the 90. When I got the box to go on this Costa Rica project, I didn't get an instruction manual. I didn't get a briefing. I just got a lens, and it was, hey, it's brand new, figure it out, and that's fine. But I opened the box, and I was immediately surprised. Now you can hold it up if you want, Mishalla.
Yes, yes, my job, my Vanna White.
There is no dial. So there's no dial. There is a focus limiter, which actually ergonomically is much easier to use. It's just a slide toggle switch that goes into 3 settings. It's that top toggle there. The bottom one's for image stabilization. But there's no 1-to-1 shortcut or 2-to-1 shortcut, which is the max magnification. And I said, what the heck? I said, well, they did add a manual focus clutch. That's nice. So if anyone else that's familiar with manual focus clutch, it's a physical transition from autofocus to manual focus. When you activate the clutch, you're now just only utilizing manual focus. But I was like, where the heck is the shortcut? I can't believe they left that out. I'm happy they added the clutch. Where's the shortcut? And then I quickly realized that half a turn of that dial, like Michelle is demoing right now, is the shortcut. By turning the lens halfway clockwise from how you would hold it, you are immediately to 2x magnification or 2-to-1. And the indications on the lens, unlike other lenses, which show your, I think your focusing distance, it says 2x, 1.5x, 1x, 0.5x, 0.25x. So just, if you're seeing me do, like just by doing that, that's the shortcut. So it's where your hand already is. You just turn the lens a little bit. So here, I don't know if you can see that, right? So 2x. So way better operability. I've used the 60 for years and years, very used to it. I got used to this new way, the first day that I used it, and it was great. So little bit different implementation. I think a better implementation, but the same feature is there.
Thank you for letting me be Vanna White. Sorry I did it off
Thank you for
time.
doing it.
I have another career in the future,
Yep.
right? Of holding up lenses.
Perfect.
We talked about stacking using flash, so that worked out. Amanda is really interested to know if you were out photographing the snow.
So Amanda lives very near where I live, and we have not had much snow at all this year. We really only had one significant snowfall. And I did go out because I had the 90 with me, and I said, oh, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to photograph some snowflakes. The magnification was incredible. The fact that I could look through the viewfinder and see snowflakes at that size was pretty mind-blowing. The problem was that day when it snowed, we had 4 or 5 inches of snow, and it was really warm. So it actually got up into the 50s that afternoon. So as soon as snowflakes were landing, they were melting. So I was getting a bunch of like melty mess snowflakes, which didn't look great. So I didn't get any great shots, but I would imagine that someone that lives in a colder environment and gets more snow, like this is a great snowflake lens.
I've seen a couple of snowflake shots.
I saw a couple today, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of our ambassadors that have put together some snowflake shots that have been really cool. So I'm very excited for next winter to see what you guys all do.
Well, I love snowflake shots, but I'm not jealous of people that live places where it snows all the time.
Right. Although, I mean, rainy bugland, Costa Rica.
Take me back to Costa Rica.
Sorry, 1 second. My headphones started wigging out. How often were you using super macro in Costa Rica? Were you using it all the way at full macro? Cool. So
yeah, I was in that setting on the focus limiter quite a bit, probably more often than not. But I don't even, let me look at what it says on it. So it's super macro. I'm not sure what the working distance is. I guess it's still 0.25 to 0.5 meters, but I'm trying to think how often I was there. Most of the time, but I wasn't always at 100% magnification, I guess is why I'm hesitating. So
that's fair.
And the only times that I was in the 0.25 to infinity, you may have seen some shots like in the video where I'm photographing waterfalls or things at a distance. It's really nice to be able to just not even take your face away from the lens. So I could be in super macro where I was most of the time, taking a photo of a bug or a mushroom or whatever over here, and then see a bird or see a butterfly and just like slide my thumb, and now I can focus on something over there. Because remember, this is still 180 millimeter equivalent lens. Like that's a pretty long range, where now you can photograph things with a macro lens that lets you go 2:1 that you probably could never even reach before. The dragonflies, the butterflies, the things that don't let you get right on top of them at most times in the day. And that's a huge advantage. Like that's a whole new territory where the 60 just wasn't going to reach them effectively.
Yeah. So 2-part question, although I think we kind of talked about this loosely, and follow-up question for some of the people in the chat, because I've seen it come through a few times, that this lens is compatible with both the MC20 and the MC14 teleconverters. So you can use either one of those. And somebody, John, would like to know, were you utilizing the teleconverters when you were in Costa Rica, or were you mostly just shooting straight out of the lens?
Yeah, great question. I think anyone that loves super high magnification macro, obviously this is the lens for you. And if you have the teleconverters or you're interested in really going to tiny subjects or high detail shots, the teleconverters are going to be awesome, both the 1.4 and the 2.0. I learned of the spec, I learned of the compatibility, and I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. I'm only going to shoot with the MC20 and the MC14 the whole time. But then back to what I said a few minutes ago, 2x is a lot.
Right.
So I found that the lens performs so well on its own without a teleconverter that magnification was enough for what I needed without the teleconverters, that I didn't use them that much, but I did use them. So that's, I guess, to answer the question directly. I use them. Autofocus works fine. Working distance is not decreased, just magnification is increased. So you don't have to get closer to get more magnification. So that's awesome. It's really nice to have a lens with image stabilization when you're working with the 1.4, the 2.0, because you need it. I was indeed able to shoot handheld, even with the 2X. It just takes a little bit more practice and concentration. So I never shoot with a tripod. I would say some people probably would want to have a tripod available for the really high magnification teleconverter shooting. But for me, I have the 1.4 with me all the time. I'll have that with me in the field. If I want higher magnification, I'll pop that on, and I don't feel like I'll need a tripod. I think I'll be comfortable. But just kind of a heads up for people that maybe don't feel as stable, or they just feel more comfortable on a tripod. That would be a good option for you. But yeah, teleconverters work great. It's crazy to have autofocus even at those 5.6x or whatever it ends up at 8x, which
and
is
it's so
parallel.
fast. It's
Yeah,
so
I mean,
fast. Like I was really shocked when I was doing testing how fast
it's
it was.
just as fast as without it. Like it works really, really as it should,
Right.
And that's something that really separates this lens, because there are very, very few lenses that come even close to this magnification from any manufacturer. But the ones that do come close don't have autofocus. So now you can get up to this 8x equivalent autofocus, or even 4x if you want to speak in the native terms, and you've got autofocus through the whole range. So I mentioned butterflies or dragonflies, that kind of situation where you're focusing on something up really close over here and then a little further away over there. I did that, like with the 2x teleconverter on, and taking photos of tiny little mushrooms, and then I saw a butterfly 15 feet away, and I was able to get this shot and that shot 2 seconds apart.
Nice. Let's see, where did I go? Sorry, I'm trying to add questions in because the questions are flowing very quickly tonight. Thank you,
Well,
guys.
do you want me to take a few more photos and then we can come back and answer a few questions?
No. I'm just trying to catch up. Sarah, I'm going to get you that link. That's next when we start looking at some more photos. So you just hold tight. I'll get you the link for the teleconverters. If you could let me know what country or region you're in, that would be helpful. No, it's just flowing super fast tonight.
Okay,
Everybody's really excited.
Yeah, I'm not watching the questions, so I'm relying on you to,
I know. I'm like bouncing back and forth between real time and what we have start over here. Bruce wants to know, will you use the 60 millimeter macro again? Or are you like a change?
Bruce. So I've gotten that question today. The lens launched, half a day ago, and I've already gotten that question a few times. And I love the 60. I've had it for, 6 years or something. I've made thousands of shots with it. I personally will never get rid of the 60 because of like how much I just love it and sentimental value, whatever. That said, it is unlikely that I will use the 60 that often because I now have the 90. And the 90 kind of does everything the 60 does and more, where the only real advantage the 60 has over the 90 is size and portability. And for me, it's very rare that I'm going to need that extra portability where I would compromise the other things, because I know I would get out in the field and be like, oh, I wish I had my 90. And for anyone that's familiar with the OM lens lineup, I'm comparing this to a situation of like, you have one of the 1.8 primes and you get a 1.2 prime. Yeah, they're a lot bigger. They're a lot more expensive. They're pro, but they're so good. Where you have the 100 to 400 and you get the 150 to 400. Yeah, it's bigger. Yeah, it's more expensive, but it's so good. And it's rare that you're going to choose those lesser lenses. Even though they're good, they're still, by comparison, not as good as the pro option. So long way of saying I will not get rid of my 60, but to be determined how much I actually use it now that I have the 90.
There you go. To be fair, Chris used that 60 forever and he loved it. So
if
you want the 60, you should use the 60.
It's still right here. Yeah.
All right. Somebody wants, I've got a couple more questions and then I'll let you go back to photos. I promise. Yeah. Chris, did you try the Raynox with it at all? Have you tried, Frankensteining anything yet? Or are you still in in the pure stages of the 90 millimeter.
Yeah, so the Raynox, it's a third-party adapter that a lot of people have. It's essentially like a fancy magnifying glass that clips onto the outside of your lens on the end. You can use it with pretty much any lens, and I have utilized it over the years. I did not find it necessary with the 90. I did test it just to see what it would do, and it works as expected. It brings a little more magnification to the party. But because I have other options in going between 1 and 2x natively, going beyond 2x with teleconverter, I felt like I was choosing to do that. Like I would reach for the teleconverter before the Raynox in a lot of situations. I'll still keep the Raynox on hand because I do have it. It's very easy to put on and off. So, from one shot to the next takes me 2 seconds. I can clip it on the lens, take my shots, take it off. So I will use it, but it's just not going to be as necessary as it was before.
That's fair. That's fair. There's been a couple of conversation pieces about the lens hood. It does come in the box with a lens hood. I'm not going to pop that up on the screen because there was like 4 questions about it. Does come with the lens hood. It actually just comes completely off or on, or you can turn it backwards. It doesn't collapse like the 40 to 150. I don't know who said that in the chat, but it does not do that.
Yeah, it's more of a traditional design where it goes on and off. It's not retracting. It's not like a sliding fixed position kind of thing.
Right. And then one more for you, and then we'll jump back into some photos. Did you try handheld high res at all when you were in Costa Rica photographing for the video?
Yeah, I only did for non-macro shots. So we had some kind of tele-landscape opportunities, beautiful vistas that, scenic overlooks and things. And I did for that. I honestly don't remember if I shared any of those photos with OM. They were more just for me to test out how it worked. I did it. The lens performed fine. It was fast. The in-camera high-res mode is really, really fast on the OM1. So it works. It worked well, but I don't really have a ton of feedback to provide on it. I did use Live ND, which is another computational mode, because in the absolute pouring rain, we went and saw this hidden waterfall in the jungle, and it was really cool. It was beautiful, and it's in the video, actually, me photographing at that spot. And I was like, well, I don't really use Live ND, but I've got it. Let me try it. So even without maybe never using Live ND before, I was able to activate it and get what I felt were pretty nice shots very, very easily and effectively, which was really cool. So not a feature specific to the 90 so much, but just really nice to have those things at your fingertips.
That's really funny. You were such a macro person. I never used the Live ND, and I'm like, that's my favorite feature. No, Starry Sky AF is my favorite feature, but Live ND is definitely right behind it. And you're such a macro guy.
Yeah,
I don't use it.
And I've done other types of photo and video. You need. Previously, I've utilized actual physical ND filters, and they're a pain in the butt. Anybody that's used them, a lot of them attached. They're just a sheet of glass, and you have to be very careful with them, or you spin them onto your lens, and they can be expensive. And for me, I would never invest in them because I don't use them often enough. But when I'm presented with a waterfall by surprise, it was really cool to just kick over and shoot it the way that I wanted to.
Shout out, because I see Dax Smith showed up into the comment section, and I'm always helping him in the comment section. So I'm looking at you, David. You better answer some questions in the comment section. Thanks for joining us. I love the support. Seriously, like always, answering each other's questions in the comments is highly encouraged. We love seeing the community going back and forth. Thank you guys for being so enthusiastic. Let's take some more images. Let's take a look.
Sure. And as I'm bringing up the next images, to piggyback on what Mishalla just said, I will go back and look through the comments later on. So whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, I'll try to respond to anything that wasn't addressed in real time here. So if there's additional questions that we just didn't get to, I will do my best to get them answered. If I don't answer them, you can always go to my website or socials and shoot me a message. All right. Next up, leafcutter ants. Really, really cool. Central America's got quite a lot of them. Fascinating little creatures, huge colonies, and really, really strong, obviously. I mean, look how big that leaf is compared to the ant. Very, very difficult to photograph. So this was a real test of the autofocus, because no way I was losing my mind manually focusing on these guys. But got a couple of really neat shots of the leafcutter ants, and I was really excited about that. And that's a single shot, of course. I'm not going to be stacking something that's moving so erratically.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you get lucky and you get one to pause for a couple seconds, but that was not the case here. This is something that did pause for a few seconds, and this is a frog hopper. They're really, really shiny. So this was actually, shout out to Brendan for having a great diffuser that did a really nice job with the light here. 12 shot stack. So 12 frames. I did not use in-camera stacking for this. I stacked this myself in Helican focus, but you could certainly get a similar looking result in camera as long as you were steady and got the shots. I just wasn't set up for it at that moment. And these guys are a perfect example of that little bit of extra working distance paying huge dividends, because they did not let us get close. We saw a lot of these, and you were like 3 or 4 feet away and they would pop and fly away. So it took a lot of patience to get close to even this one that I got a photo of, but you know, it was waving at me, so that's always cool. And really nice droplet right in the dead center of the above the eyes here. So really happy with that. And then one of my favorite subjects, especially, or even when I'm at home, but it doesn't matter if I'm at home or out in the jungle in Costa Rica, jumping spiders. They're adorable. They have these big eyes. They have a lot of personality. And this was just on the back porch of the hotel, and little spider running around. Kind of worked with it for a few minutes, and it stopped. I was able to fire off 16 shots in this case. Again, this is Helican focus stack. And a lot of times if I'm working with subjects that aren't as patient, I won't use in-camera stacking, because that does take a little bit longer. You need a little bit more control. With just bracketing in camera, that lets me be a little more nimble. I can fire off 10 shots and then the subject moves and I move. I can fire off 20 shots and then I can move again. So I'm more relying on somewhere within that time frame. Hopefully I get the series that I want, and then I'll stack that on my own. And that's exactly how I approach this.
That's really funny. Somebody's making fun of me for looking scared of your spiders, but I actually like these the jumpy types. They're cute. They look very nice up close. I don't want them anywhere near me.
Yeah, I wish I had a behind the scenes of this, because really, really, really small spider.
It's really funny. Last night there was a spider in my room and I freaked out, and the very first thought that came to mind was that I was having this live with you today, and I was like, Chris would be very excited about this spider in my room. I was very less excited about it, but this is my favorite image out of the the whole series of this little frog friend. But out of all of the photos you got in Costa Rica,
well, thank you.
The eyeball is amazing.
I also love this shot. I'm glad you brought up the series, because I'll kind of clue everyone into that in 1 second. But this subject, the red-eyed tree frog, is quintessentially Costa Rica. This is the iconic species. I think it might be their national amphibian. Like, it's on their money, right? Like, this is a very famous frog, and they're adorable, and they're super colorful. Obviously, this is just kind of the side profile of the face, but their rib cage area has a blue pattern on it, and they're really, really cool. And they have these giant red eyes and bright green skin and a lot of personality, similar to jumping spiders in that sense. And I really had my fingers crossed. Like, I hope I get to photograph a red-eyed tree frog in Costa Rica. Well, as luck would have it, I photographed many, many red-eyed tree frogs, but this was probably the most close-up shot of the eye. And I also love this shot. But Mishalla mentioned a series of images, and I don't have them queued up in this presentation, but if everyone heads over to the whatever region you're in, the blog or the Learn Center for OM in your region, there's an article that I wrote that kind of chronicles the trip and shows a lot of photos. And there's 3 photos of this frog that were taken in succession, right? All within a 1 minute span. but it shows what I was talking about the versatility. They're quite different. One is the full body from the side. One is kind of a 3/4 view that's a little closer up. And then you have this really tight shot of just the face. And that's the kind of stuff that I was doing time and time again with the 90. That was really fun. And it made me feel like more creative, like I was having more of this experience working in and out with different shots.
I just am so impressed with the texture of his eyeball underneath, like the shine. It looks like paper.
It's great.
I didn't. I know that the tagline is "See the Unseen," but this is like truly an experience of seeing the unseen, right? If we see this cute little frog, he's going to be this big to our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to jump away, and we're never going to know what his eye looks like. And it's just so interesting. This whole different world that's down there that we're seeing. And this image is the epitome of that for me. It's my favorite one in this whole thing.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
So neat.
All right, next up, this is a shot of a weevil taking off a blade of grass. Kind of a shot that I see now and then, and it's like, how do you actually plan for this? And I guess you could use Pro Capture. I didn't in this case, but really tough to time this, of course, right? But I got lucky a bit. I was hoping this would happen, and I got it just right. But the wings opened up like that, the top of the wings, the under wings, and this is a little bit different because I didn't have a flash with me at this time. We were actually shooting drone footage for the video, and I was like up on a hill, and we're like, oh, we're gonna do this cool shot. We're gonna fly the drone overhead, and I was just like standing on the hill by myself and saw some bugs. So I knelt down, and like I said, didn't have the flash. ISO's up at 2500, shutter speed's up higher, and just kind of started firing off frames and adjusting my composition, and was able to get one just like this. So a non-bug, it's still something living, but walking through the jungle, you see a lot of really interesting plant life. And these were really, really small. I would say that the curly part at the end in the center is like the size of my pinky nail on my finger. This is very tiny, and there's thousands of them, right? They're everywhere. And I kept having to remind myself, like, those are cool, photograph them. Like, that's a good macro photo. It's not a bug, but it'll be good. So I took several shots like this, and I thought this was a good demo of the bokeh and the detail and kind of interesting movement inside the frame, and a little something for those that are a little squeamish with the other shots. But this is also a single shot, no focus stacking here.
Oh, I like this one. I like the universe you can see around here. This is his whole land. See, we are seeing the unseen. That is the best hashtag.
I agree. And that's one of the things that got me into macro, in this type of macro to begin with, is once you start taking these photos, you start finding things that, like, whether they're in your own backyard or deep in the rainforest, you just never got to see them before. And you're like in a new world. And it's really, really cool to experience and discover. And this photo, another weevil, so the third weevil, very different shots for each of them, was on like this mossy edge of a flower box, like a planter. So the hotel that we stayed at had outdoor seating at their restaurant and kind of lining the patio were these flower boxes. So I finished a meal and I was just poking around the patio, and of course it was raining because it rained a lot. And I saw this, so I was able to get down really low, get that kind of immersive feeling of being in that universe. And this is just moss. Each of those little, I don't even know what you would call them, blades of moss. They're not really blades, but with the droplets on top of them, they're like maybe a half an inch tall, probably smaller. So, and again, uncropped. This is the actual framing that came out of the camera. And just a couple more. So here's another snake. This snake is a cat-eyed snake. I'm not a big herper. I'm not a snake expert. But of course, I'm excited when I find one. I get to photograph it. But especially being in a foreign country, I had no idea what this was. So I'm with the guys from the agency, and I'm with Ted, and I was like, oh, a snake. And I started photographing. They're like, do you know what that is? Do you know if it's venomous? I was like, no, it's not venomous. And then like 2 seconds later, I was like, well, maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to take my photos. And this is actually a really tiny snake. It was very, very slender, barely thicker than a pencil. And this was 10 shots in camera stack, handheld. They're all handheld, but I guess I feel like I should point that out. Handheld, but kind of like that spider shot I showed earlier, where I did not have the luxury of leaning on something to get stability. I'm just kind of arms out, like just holding my camera as steady as I can. And that's where the balance of the 90 on the OM1 and the image stabilization in the lens and the body all come together, where I feel like you're able to get shots that maybe you can't get with another setup or even with the 60, or like it feels way more stable. And I was getting shots time and time again. And I kept saying it to the guys, like, I can't believe I'm getting that. Like it's just perfect. Like I push the button and it's stacked in camera and it's done. So it's really exciting for that to happen.
Please tell me you guys had like first aid kits and EpiPens on hand, right?
We had nothing, but
oh my gosh,
but we made it home just fine, and it's all worth it.
I know what you're getting for Christmas.
Oh,
this guy's so cute.
So this is the second shot from the series that I mentioned. So in the Learn Center article, there's one additional shot in this series, but same frog as before, but much further away, slightly lower vantage point, completely different composition. There you see the pattern, the blue and the yellow on the rib cage, the orange fingers. Like, these are so cool. And I just can't get enough of that pose. Like, this is as if I posed the frog, and I very much did not pose the frog. I mean, it was crawling around the leaves and hopping from here to there, and I was just able to capture this photo at just the right time.
He looks like he's so relaxed. He's your friend. He's just taking this
photo
with you.
We're very good friends. Yeah.
Yeah, he's also an international model. I don't know if you're signed with the same agency that he is.
No,
but
yeah. Well, I've licensed this. Yeah. So that's my last photo. So,
somebody wants to know if the background is black on this because it was night. Is this one of your night shots?
So that's a good question, and it was night. So I'm trying to answer this the right way. It was night, but the background is not black because it was night. It's more a byproduct of how I was utilizing the flash in this scenario. So a lot of people will ask me, sometimes they'll see a shot like this that wasn't taken at night. It'll be taken in the day, but depending on how you expose for the ambient light and how you use your flash and how close your background is to your subject, meaning if your background is far away, your flash won't hit that background. Therefore, the flash falls off and it goes black, versus if you have a tree or a bush or some other element close up behind your subject, your flash will illuminate that, and then you'll get the color from it. So you can kind of create this look regardless of whether it's day or night, but this was indeed shot at night.
Okay, one question on this, because I know it gets brought up all the time and we always have to address it, and I want to address it again. But first and foremost, Mike said that you took the frog's casual senior portrait,
yes,
which I definitely agree with here. But that's not the question we're about to answer. Oh no, where'd that question just go? When you are using focus stacking in camera, where do you initially focus? I know this is your favorite question.
Yeah. So look, I get it if you're confused by this. It's something that I hope that one day the engineers who program focus stacking in camera make an adjustment to make it a little more clear for everyone. But when you focus stack using in-camera focus stacking, your camera's going to take a series of images from 3 up to 15. And your first shot is where you initially focus. So let's say I initially focus on the eye in this case, right? I press the button, focus will be on the eye, there will be an establishing shot, then focus will come back toward me for a couple of shots, and that couple of shots can vary. It's usually 2, but depending on your settings and your working distance, it may be 4, but it's usually 2. And then it continues through your subject. Because there is a little bit of a mystery there, I always aim for the part of my subject nearest to me that I want in focus. And that yields the most predictable results, where all of the areas that I need in focus will be in focus. It doesn't ruin the shot. It doesn't have a negative impact if you get a shot out of focus too close to you. So if you're going to risk something being out of focus, you want it to be an area that isn't important, rather than, oh, I'm going to guess, I'm going to focus just beyond the tip of the nose. Well, you might not get the tip of the nose then. So I always err on the side of caution there.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, S, for asking. And I'm joking about this being his favorite question. We talk about this a lot when we go through the macro stuff, because if you're newer to our system, or you're new into focus bracketing, or you just never tried it before, or even some of our seasoned pros have no idea how stacking works in camera. So we've addressed it a lot of times, and I will continue to address it in every one of our live streams that we ever do, just to make sure everyone gets it. So thank you for asking.
And I'll give a little follow-up to that. When you're not using in-camera stacking, when you're just using in-camera bracketing, in-camera bracketing on its own, if you're going to stack after the fact, not in camera, it's actually a little more forgiving, because it only goes back into space. So it starts at the front and then moves away. So what I like to do is start forward of what I want in focus. So if I was focusing, like use my own face as where I'm focusing, if my camera is you guys, I would start here, not here, right? Like I would start in front of my subject and let the focus series go through the subject, rather than risking just missing the tip of my nose, right? Like start in front of it and just throw those frames away. It's okay to get extra frames. So it's a little more forgiving than in-camera stacking, where you only have so many frames to work with, so you don't want to throw away too many. But if you throw away 1 or 2, the camera just decides that, and it's fine.
You guys, we have almost perfectly made it to an hour. We only went over by 8 minutes and 32 seconds. Good job, Chris. We've done it. So now that you've had the 90mm and you obviously, I would say, enjoyed your time, what was your favorite part of Costa Rica? What was your favorite part of this whole excursion?
That is an awesome question, because there's so much that was good about the trip. I mean, seeing the video today live this morning, when it was launched at 1 a.m. and today on social in different countries and different people seeing it, like it's so surreal. Like it doesn't even seem like it happened. So that's pretty awesome. But from the trip itself, I would say just being out at night and photographing subjects, like when I felt the least restricted, it wasn't, okay, we're going to film a promotional video right now. Like that's the different thing. You're on set at that point. You're in the jungle, but you're on set. When it was just me and Ted, and we were out and we were looking for frogs, and we were finding things and crawling around on the ground and getting soaking wet, like that was such a disconnection from normal reality, and it was super fun, and I wish I could do it more often.
That's awesome. Well, I loved your video. I think it was probably one of our greatest videos ever for a launch product. You were stunning and great, and you're a very powerful speaker. I loved it, and I hope you had an awesome time with our team down there in Costa Rica. And I put your contact information back up on the screen. I'm going to pull it down so that we can say goodbye to our dear friend Chris. But I'm sure you guys will see Chris around quite a bit. If you're not already following him on Instagram, I popped his Instagram up like 4 times today. You should definitely give him a follow. He loves to interact with our community, and he also posts really good pictures. I know there's a couple of you in the chat who don't like bug photos. Don't follow Chris. He posts a lot of bugs. He's kind of the bug guy, but
yeah. And I will be posting a lot of photos. I mean, I shared 10 or 15 photos today with everyone. I shared a few on Instagram, Facebook today. I have dozens and dozens of photos. So pretty much every day for weeks to come, I will be sharing content. So if you are into this stuff, definitely give a follow, and you'll see lots more of it.
Awesome. We have so many thank you guys in the chat. So thank you all for watching. Couple of questions about when it's shipping. It does vary on where you are in the world. So our regions are shipping it a little bit slightly different times, but it looks to be early March for almost everyone. So get those pre-orders in. If you want the lens, you got to get the pre-orders in. So we will be shipping them soon. Sorry. And thank you to all of our wonderful ambassadors who tuned in. And I see a lot of my awesome, awesome coworkers. Tomas, I hope your live stream was great today. Nicole, thank you for joining us. Lots of our cool coworkers, lots of our ambassadors, but really most importantly, so many of you awesome people that tune into all these shows and keep us in the movie business, as they say. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Chris, thank you for joining. I appreciate all your time today. And I know you're so sleepy because you were up answering everyone's questions all night about
no better reason to miss sleep, though. Yeah. So excited to be here. And thank you, Mishalla. Thank you to everyone that's viewing today for the questions. Again, feel free to send me more questions after the fact. Reach out to me however you want. And really just thanks for the opportunity to be the face of this launch and for trusting me with the lens out in the wild in a foreign country for a few days. So really honored, and it was really exciting.
We do trust you. It's okay. We know everything about you. Thank you guys, and have a wonderful afternoon. Happy 90mm day.
Bye, everybody.